I want to start off by saying a big thank you to Bethel from us Aylings. You have been a faithful support in prayer and in many other ways over the years, while we were in Japan, of course, but also now that we are back here in Wales. Back in the day, I used to start my presentations with this slide. Now, that's all right. Now, I start with this slide. Apart from the color of the slide, do you notice any differences? And also the logo is in a different place. But apart from that, in terms of the wording on the slide, do you notice any difference? Go on, Boaz. How is that different? Yeah, so what's the difference? That's true. Yeah, there's a teacher. I was thinking it's just the geography, the place. The rest of it's the same. So it used to be in Japan for the glory of God. Now it's in the UK for the glory of God. The only thing that's changed is the location. And that's because wherever we are, whatever we're doing, if we're followers of Jesus, we're doing it for the glory of God. It says in 1 Corinthians 10, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Whether you're working in Japan or in the UK, whether you're working as a pharmacist or a banker, whatever you're doing, we should be doing it for the glory of God. And it's not to say that, being in Japan is more glorifying to God than being in the UK. In some ways, the location is irrelevant. What matters is that we're doing it for God's glory. So we were in Japan, we're in the UK, but like all of you, we're doing it for the glory of God. Most of you here will know my story, but just a little reminder, I was born in Japan and grew up in Japan, hearing about Jesus and learning about the Bible. And then got married to this lovely lady, who you all know. Some of you were there at the wedding. Then as a married couple, we felt that God was leading us to go to Japan. And so we started off in Singapore for the 4 weeks of orientation, having been sent out from this place by you, Bethel, and then went on from Singapore to Japan. And while we were there, most of the time we were involved in student work, reaching out to Japanese students, partnering with the Japanese equivalent of UCCF, which is called KGK, doing Bible studies and so on, and also doing outreach events through an OMF ministry called FM0, which is what's going on here. But then back in 2019, we left Sapporo, where we'd been serving. We had a lot more bags by that point, picked up a few superheroes on the way, and now we're back in Wales. And since we moved back to Wales, most of that time I was working as my title was the Serve Asia Alumni Coordinator, which is quite a mouthful. But basically what it means is I was making sure that people who'd gone on short-term mission trips with OMF, that when they came back to the UK, I was making sure that someone was following them up and helping them to discern God's will for them, for their next steps in their involvement in world mission. Part of that involved, as a result of the pandemic, there weren't many people going during that time, particularly on short-term mission trips. But out of that, one of the things that developed was this Zooming to Japan, which is a monthly online prayer meeting for Japan, which I organize. Also, I've been writing a quarterly newsletter for these alumni, meeting with them mostly on Zoom, and writing resources to help their mentors to follow them up and help to journey alongside them. And one of the resources was this set of Bible studies called the 6 Ways Bible Studies. In OMF, we talk about how there are at least 6 ways of getting involved in God's plan to reach the nations for Christ. There's learning about what God is doing across the world and about his heart for the nations in the Bible. Praying as we learn about what God is doing, praying for his kingdom to come. Inspiring others to get involved. Going, of course, which is what mostly we think of when we think of mission, is the going part. Welcoming is reaching out to people from other nations in our own neighborhoods, whether it's people from Turkey or Iran or wherever they're from. That's welcoming. Sending others, which of course you know all about, having sent us to Japan. So I believe that every follower of Jesus is to be part of making disciples of all nations. That doesn't mean that all of us have to pack our bags and go to Japan. If that were the case, there would be no one here to support those who are going to Japan. But we all have a part to play, and part of my role as the Serve Asia Alumni Coordinator was helping these alumni to discern what part God had for them to play. So I was doing that role until December last year, but now my title now is the Area Rep for Wales and the West. So in the picture there's Charles and Liz Chalmers, who were at our commissioning service back in 2010 when we were sent out. They've retired now. They retired just a couple of weeks ago. And they've moved to Swansea. They were living in Bristol, but now they've moved to Swansea because Swansea is the place to be. So, yeah. But I'm taking over from them. They were doing the job for 13 years. And so rather large shoes to fill. There was 2 of them and only 1 of me. And this is the area. So it's Wales and the west of England, which goes down as far as Cornwall in the south, up to Derbyshire in the north, and across east as far as Oxford. So I am feeling rather daunted, rather overwhelmed by the size of the area, but also the scope of the role. So anything to do with OMF, I'm the first port of call in this area, whether it's people inquiring about going short-term or long-term, whether it's looking after members who are back in this country on what we call home assignment, retirees, volunteers. We have a volunteer network called Bridge Asia, and networking with churches and individuals, Christian unions, and the like. So yes, it's a large role, and I've only been doing the job 8 months, and feel it's a big role. So I'd appreciate your prayers very much. One of the things that pictures the scope of the role is these files that were brought to our house in January when Charles and Liz, they came and brought this whole load of stuff. So since January, I can't see much of my carpet in my study. And I've slowly been trying to work through all these box files, and there's a filing cabinet which is pretty much hidden there, and an in tray, and all kinds of bags and boxes full of literature and information. Yeah, I'm feeling rather overwhelmed by the job. But there have been some highlights as well, one of which was this summer. Ethan and I and this lady Sarah went to a conference, a youth conference in Staffordshire called Dreaming the Impossible, or DTI for short. This is Sarah, by the way, who is actually the daughter of Charles and Liz, the previous area reps. So, hold on, someone's trying to call me, so I'm just going to turn this off. That wasn't staged, by the way. So Dreaming the Impossible. So there's about 4,000 young people at this event. On the first night, over 300 gave their lives to Christ. And on the stand, which is behind us there, we had lots of interested teenagers, young people, youth leaders, some of them very serious about going overseas long term. There's this one chap, I would guess he was about 16, maybe 17. He's interested in Japan, and a lot of people these days are interested in Japan, which is great. I love that. Sometimes, though, it's basically they're interested in anime and manga and J-pop. But this guy, he was really serious about it. So I gave him a book called Ultimate Grace, which was written by a friend of mine called Levi, about playing Ultimate Frisbee in Japan. It's not a big book, but it's still a book. And this teenager, he took the book. The next morning, he turned up at the stand again, saying, oh, it was a really good book. And I was like, well, did you read it? He said, yeah, I finished it all. In one evening, he'd read the whole book, which was quite exciting. And I spoke to one youth worker who said that she had a couple of children, primary school-aged children, who were seriously considering becoming full-time, long-term missionaries overseas. So that was really exciting, hearing about young people really taking seriously the Great Commission. It was also a joy to be at ABBA, again, manning the stand there, and also playing in the music group. That was a real privilege. And one of the highlights at ABBA was this guy, I won't say his real name, but he was probably about 9 or 10, and every day he came down to the mission exhibition, which is down the hill from the main venue, and he would visit all of the stands in the mission exhibition. I think there was about 25 different stands. And he'd collect all the materials. And then in the early morning prayer meetings, which I didn't go to, but he was there every day. And he was using these prayer materials to pray for all these countries and ministries around the world. This is a guy 9 or 10 years old. And there he is, taking seriously the opportunities to get involved in mission right here, right now. So that was another highlight. Another highlight this summer was meeting up with the Bridge Asia team in the West Midlands. So Bridge Asia is this network of volunteers who help with OMF's mobilization ministry, trying to inspire the church in this country to get involved in what God is doing among the nations. And here are some of the volunteers. One of the perks or the bonuses for me was that this lady on the right from Indonesia, she brought some freshly made homemade sushi, and it was really good. So that was good. But we were talking about the worldview training that OMF offers. So people from different cultures see the world as if through different glasses. It's just the way we see the world. We do it as well. And we're almost unaware of it because that's how we've always seen the world. But then when we meet someone from a different worldview, we can be talking at cross purposes. So it's good to learn how to communicate the unchanging truths of the gospel in ways that are more understandable to people from a different culture. So that's one of the things we offer as OMF to churches and Christian unions and different groups, to help that, to equip them to share the gospel with people from other cultures. Any questions so far? Okay, well, I thought we'd pause for a moment there and pray for a bit. So pray for individuals and churches in this area, Wales and the West, to be inspired and equipped to share the good news of Jesus with other cultures, particularly with East Asians. Do pray for Charles and Liz Chalmers as they're settling into their new house in Gosainen. Give thanks for the DTI conference and ABBA and the Worldview training. And also pray for the OMF prayer groups. So there are these groups around the country that meet to pray for OMF workers in Asia. Over COVID, some of them had to close. Some of them are struggling as people get elderly and more frail, and numbers are dwindling. So do pray that God will be raising up more people to pray for the work amongst East Asians. And I'm going to be visiting a lot of these prayer groups around the country in the next few months. So I'd appreciate prayer for that. Another part of the role is something called Next Gen. Next Gen is an event for the next generation, hence the name, inspiring young people to find their place in mission. It's for people who maybe have never been involved in any kind of cross-cultural ministry before, or people who've been on short-term mission trips and they're wondering what's next for them. Over the pandemic, I was involved in, and when I was the Serve Asia Alumni Coordinator, I was involved in lots of these different events. OMF puts on these events in each of the different regions around the British Isles. Now it's my turn to organise my own event, that's in Birmingham on October the 14th. And the date is looming, and I still got a lot of work to do organising that, so I appreciate prayers for that. Another thing coming up is what's called the Work and Go event. So we had a Work and Go event back in November last year in Manchester, and we're having another one this year. And the idea behind the Work and Go event is to inspire workers to take their careers and go, to work and go, hence the name. So some people might get they may be working for a bank, or they might be engineers or accountants, whatever they're doing, and they might get a transfer or an opportunity to have a transfer to Tokyo or Bangkok or wherever. And so they're invested in their career, but they also are mission-minded and they want to get involved in reaching out to East Asians. And so the idea is that they can go with OMF, partnering with OMF, with their job, so they're paid, they've got paid employment, but they'll partner with OMF on the ground, reaching out to East Asians. In the past, someone might have phoned up and said, "Oh, I've got this job transfer. Can we do something with you?" And OMF had to say, "I'm sorry, our application process is 18 months at least, and you need your Bible college training, and that's a couple of years, and all this. So God bless you, but we can't do anything." So now, alongside that traditional route of the long-term kind of evangelist, church planter, missionary type, and the short-term mission trips. There's this third pathway, if you like, of using your career to go overseas. So this event in Manchester is to inspire workers to take their career overseas and be involved in mission in that way. This is a bit blurry, I'm sorry, but this is a graph that was at a workshop I was at back in June, showing the number of people who are applying to go with OMF long term. So the green bits are people who have just joined OMF, new members. The yellow bits are people who are candidates. They've applied, they're in the process of going, but haven't gone yet. I think the blue bit is people who are applying or inquiring. I'm not exactly sure. But as you can see, there's a bit of a trend. Did you notice the trend? Which direction is the trend going? It's going down. So the numbers of people who are joining to go long-term with OMF is declining. And it seems that that is a pattern across the board. Other agencies, other missionary organizations are experiencing a similar pattern. And so, whilst we want to still be sending people long-term to Asia as the traditional full-time evangelist, church planter, or whatever, this work and go pathway is going to provide some more boots on the ground, as it were, of people who are there to join in with the work on the ground with their own financial backing from their paid employment. This lady is Meg Woolcock. She is one of those candidates, the yellow bit. She's applied, she's been accepted to OMF, and she wants to go to Japan, hooray, but she hasn't got enough financial support to be able to go. And she's been in that situation for about a year or more, and she's got one last chance. So by the end of this calendar year, by December, she needs to have got at least 80% of her financial support pledged, otherwise she'll be unable to go. This family is in exactly the same position. They've applied, they've been accepted to OMF, but again lack the financial resources to go. And again, they've been in that situation for a long time. So, just as we come to a close, I want to remind us of this verse. Jesus says to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." The laborers are few. We could talk about how few Christians there are in Japan and other countries, particularly in East Asia. There's such a huge need for laborers. And there are people willing and able to go, but they need the financial resources to go. But God is a God of miracles. He can provide. Hudson Taylor, who founded OMF, he is quoted as saying, "God's work done in God's way will never lack God's supply." So we trust that if this is God's will for these people to go, God will provide the financial resources to go. So some points for prayer as we close. I'm going to a commissioning service. So that means that there is a couple who have been accepted and they have the financial support and they are going God willing, in November. And this weekend I'll be in Birmingham at this commissioning service, sending off this couple. Just as Anna and I were sent off from Bethel, there's a church in Birmingham sending off this couple to Southeast Asia. So pray for that commissioning service. Also, I'm leading this prayer meeting on the 12th, Tuesday morning. It used to be called the Bristol Day of Prayer, but it's not in Bristol anymore, it's online. And people come from, attend from all over the region. So now it's called the Wales and West Online Prayer, or WAWOP for short. And it's the first time I'm leading this prayer meeting, so please pray that goes well. And it's all on Zoom, so pray for stable internet connections and all the rest of it. I'm also involved in a missions training event at a church in Cheltenham on the 5th of October. And there's going to be some people from Hong Kong doing some cooking, some Chinese food. There'll be prayer stations and different kind of interactive elements for young people to engage with. So pray for that missions training event at the church in Cheltenham. I've mentioned already Next Gen in Birmingham and Work and Go in Manchester. CRE stands for the Church Resources Exhibition. So I'll be in Birmingham in November with a stand. I've never been to this conference before, so I don't really know what it's going to be like. Pray for good conversations. I've got to be there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, manning the stand. So I think it will be a long day, so pray for that. Also, I've mentioned Bridge Asia. That's this network of volunteers who partner with what OMF is doing to inspire the church in the UK to get involved in mission. And we have some dotted around, but there are no Bridge Asia volunteers in Wales. So please pray for more Bridge Asia volunteers in Wales. And if you want to volunteer, let me know. And also in Birmingham, which is the second largest city in the country, in the UK, and certainly the largest city in the West region. So pray for Bridge Asia volunteers in Wales and Birmingham. And also for more Serve Asia workers, that's our short-term mission discipleship program, and for more long-term candidates, as I've mentioned. I also have opportunities to preach at different churches on mission as well, so I'd appreciate prayer for that.